Very nice. All right, it is started. So hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and thank you so much for coming to Vita's very first Readers Theater performance. This is our closing afternoon, and we are so excited that you were able to join us here today. My name is Amy Zavala, and I am the Lifestyle Coordinator here at Vita Littleton. And I want to tell you a little bit about how this whole Readers Theater came to fruition, because this was something that we started and thought about back in November of 2020. In fact, in, I believe, the November Insider, I just kind of plopped it in, come on out for Readers Theater, and I didn't know if I was going to get one person to show up, or we had about 10 at our very first meeting. So from there, we chose the script together, we began rehearsing, and let me tell you, this group is so dedicated. Why? Because we continued to practice through a shutdown, on Zoom only, which is not a nice platform for rehearsing theater, but all of these cast and crew members continued to come each week because we knew how important this would be for us as a community. And look, we've had 4 performances and 80 people have come to see this. So a round of applause for all of you, all of you. In fact, we're going to involve you here today. So when you see certain signs, you can, yes, applaud. And also, I think a lot of you have pulled these fun little smiles out. Someone pointed out that because the audience members will be wearing their masks, of course, the cast won't see your smiles. Of course, they'll hear your laughter, which is great, and this is a comedy, so we encourage you to laugh. But, nice one, Carl. Carl's has a tongue sticking out. So if you enjoy and it's a smile, by all means, just hold it up and do what you can and let the cast know that you are enjoying this performance. So I want to turn it over to our co-director here. This is Denise Schultz. She is a resident who lives here, and she wants to fill you in on the history.
So, I have a mic.
There you
go. My voice projects, so I forget. I just wanted you to know that this episode, which is called Puppy Love, was first presented on February 4th, 1951. So I sort of wanted to take you back to some memories of 1951, since a lot of us were still alive. So in 1951, Harry Truman was still president. Daniel Thornton was the governor of the state of Colorado. If you read, Catcher in the Rye was first published in 1951. On Broadway was The King and I, and Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams with Marlon Brando. Also, if you went to the movies, you could see Gene Kelly in American in Paris. And if you were lucky enough to own a TV, black and white, in 1951 was the first episode of I Love Lucy. We also ask you to make sure all your cell phones are off, because we had an incident the other night when we forgot to mention it. So if you would make sure it's on airplane mode or quiet or something like that.
Perfect.
Thank you very much and enjoy the show.
And before we begin, although you can clap, maybe for yourselves, look underneath those chairs. Just kind of put your hand underneath. And if you pull out something, you are a winner! So go ahead and wave it up high, and you get to keep those beautiful pieces of paper. Oh, perfect, perfect.
Oh,
And then,
Yeah.
perfect.
That's it.
Woo!
Take the tree. There's still one more. I don't know. I have two.
she's got one over here.
Yes, you can.
And
There you go, sweetheart.
so sweet. We found all our winners. Perfect.
I think there might be one more. I think this was
That's
left over.
okay. Thanks for playing along. You get to keep that, and you might see that face again somewhere.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, I start the show with the line, the makers of Johnson's Wax and Johnson's Self-Polishing Glow Coat present another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks.
The days of weekly floor scrubbing are gone forever. Repeated scrubbing of linoleum floors can eventually damage the linoleum. It's so much easier to protect floors with a modern floor polish, Johnson's Self-Polishing Glow Coat. Your linoleum will not only last longer, but Glow Coat can save you work. Glow Coat needs no rubbing or buffing. You simply apply and let dry. Glow Coat creates a flexible, non-brittle film that wears evenly with a lasting luster. Glow Coat is economical. A little goes far. Get Johnson's Self-Polishing Glow Coat this week.
Perhaps many of us have forgotten the story of that saying, "Speak for yourself, John Alden." So we will try to refresh your memories of this famous love triangle as it appears in our story today. In 1620, the Mayflowers set sail for the Plymouth colonies in America. Aboard the ship was Miles Standish, Priscilla Mullins, and John Alden. During the course of the voyage, Miles and John were enamored by Priscilla, who happened to be the only female on board of marriageable age. During the course of the voyage, Miles and John became friends and each pursued Priscilla. But it was Miles who wrote out a marriage proposal for her. But because of other commitments and involvements, he asked John to read it for him. And before John had finished reading the proposal, Priscilla stopped him and said, "Ask for yourself, John Alden." He did. They were wed and eventually had 10 children.
Well, like most school teachers, our Miss Brooks, who teaches English at Madison High School, has been exposed to her share of puppy love.
I'll say I have. It's getting so I can't look a puppy in the face without flinching. But the kids at school are nothing compared to the case I discovered at home between my landlady, Mrs. Davis, and Horace Barlow, the school's new Jan basement custodian. Although she met him a week ago at a school tea, up until Thursday morning at breakfast, she kept denying anything but a passing interest in him.
Please, Connie, just because Horace Barlow has been over a few times, there's no reason for people to jump to conclusions. My goodness, Horace isn't jumping to conclusions.
At his age, Horace is lucky if he can limp to conclusions. But, you know, I've seen you two together, Mrs. Davis.
As far as I'm concerned, I think of Horace as just a real nice boy.
And he is, too. A real nice 68-year-old boy.
That's to be 54, Connie. He told me so himself.
I know, Mrs. Davis, and Jack Benny is 39. Not that I'm criticizing your friendship. Far from it. I'm delighted that Horace is so genuinely fond of you.
Oh, Connie, Horace doesn't even know I'm alive.
Well, don't let that worry you. It's hard to tell about him most of the time.
Anyway, I'm simply not interested in anything but the most casual relationship. Heavens, if I were thinking seriously, I'd try to find out something about the man, wouldn't I?
Haven't you?
Definitely not. I'm not even mildly curious. I haven't even the slightest idea where he keeps his $10,000 life insurance policy. And I have no knowledge whatsoever of how he got his leg wounded in the Mexican War, for which he gets a $53 a month pension. I don't even know in what bank he keeps his $2,619 savings account.
Shame on you. You haven't even gotten his social security number.
It's 498-265.
Oh, that's Walter Denton. He's taking me to school. Be right there, Walter. Now, is there anything you want me to say to Mr. Barlow for you if I happen to see him at school?
Not a thing, Connie.
Okay,
There's no necessity of even mentioning to him that I'm not busy tonight.
I see.
And there's no need for any remarks about the cake I'm baking today, being too big for one person to finish alone.
I'll be as silent as the tomb.
And above all, it would be utterly shameless if he were to hear that I don't want to waste the box of cigars I bought yesterday.
You can trust me implicitly, Mrs. Davis. I won't say a word to Mr. Barlow. I'll just hit him on the head and drag him home. I'm glad you picked me up early this morning, Walter. I've got an errand to do for Mrs. Davis before my first class.
I'll get you there with the speed of a gazelle, Miss Brooks. Oh, by the way, how's Mrs. Davis's romance with Mr. Barlow coming along?
Oh, have you noticed that too? I think it's the cutest thing in the world. Mrs. Davis actually has a bad case of puppy love.
It is cute, considering she's in her second puppyhood. No disrespect intended, you understand. After all, what can be more romantic than two lonely old people encountering the grand passion, the sere and yellow leaf of life?
Well, that's absolutely poetic, Walter.
The burning desires of youth long past, and look now for the subdued glow of companionship, the warm and simple pleasures that two elderly people in love can share together.
I can see them now, soaking their feet in the same pan of Epsom salts.
I bet you'd like to find romance at that age, Miss Brooks.
At the rate I'm going now, I'm counting on it. But Walter, I just assume you don't mention the subject at school. It might be a source of embarrassment to Mr. Barlow.
My trap is sealed, Miss Brooks. Now, what's the errand you gotta do for Mrs. Davis this morning?
Well, off the record, I'm going to invite Mr. Barlow over to the house tonight. He's been a little backward about asking for a date.
I get it. You're Mrs. Davis's John Alden. Now, all you've got to do is get Mr. Barlow to invite Mr. Boynton over, and you're all set.
Meeting's adjourned.
Early today, aren't you?
Hello, Harriet. I've got to deliver a message to the custodian. Have you seen him?
Oh, yes. Mr. Barlow just went into his office. Isn't it wonderful, Miss Brooks?
I don't know. I've never been in his office.
I mean about Mr. Barlow and Mrs. Davis. They're crazy about each other. Of course, it's a big secret.
It couldn't be a bigger secret if they took out an ad.
Is there anything more romantic than the mellow romance of old age?
Now, please, Harriet.
To think of two people finding love at a time of life when others are preparing to pass on. Two people walking hand in hand in the twilight of life.
Yes, there's nothing like a brisk walk before passing on.
Well, I won't keep you any longer. Far be it from me to delay Mrs. Davis's emissary of love. Good luck in your mission, John Alden.
Thank you, Priscilla.
Come on in.
I'm home I'm not disturbing you, Mr. Barlow, but there's something I want to ask you.
Well, then go ahead and ask. You want to get apples, you gotta shake the tree. What is it?
Well, it's just this. I was wondering if tonight, that is, if you haven't any other plans, Mrs. Davis isn't doing anything, and I'm sure she'd be pleased if you wanted to drop over.
Well, that's right, Waverly. Would you like me to drop over?
Of course. I'm sure you and Mrs. Davis will have a lovely evening together.
Are you planning on staying in, Miss Brooks?
Well, I suppose, Mr. Barlow, but I'm sure at your age, you don't need a chaperone.
Well, you're right about that. Maybe we could send Mrs. Davis to a movie.
Send Mrs. Davis to a movie?
Oh, there's no sense if I try to hide it any longer. Right? The only reason I've been coming around Mrs. Davis' place is to be near you.
Near me? But you've been making dates with Mrs. Davis.
Well, naturally. You gotta slip the drones a little honey if you want to get next to the queen bee.
You, Mr. Barlow, are barking up the wrong hive. This is ridiculous. I simply can't believe it's even happening.
I couldn't believe it myself. I just couldn't understand the feeling that swept over me the first time I saw you, Miss Brooks. In fact, since that time, I've had my glasses changed twice, but it's still the same. I keep asking myself, where have you been all my life?
For 3/4 of it, I wasn't even born. Look, Mr. Barlow, there's a great difference in our ages.
Oh, nonsense, Miss Brooks. I just don't believe in age.
Well, neither do I. I've been standing it off now for years, I mean. If you think this whole thing over for a while, you'll realize that it just couldn't work out.
Why not? Is there somebody else playing the piano in your front parlor?
No. Mr. Boynton plays the ukulele on my back porch. We've been going together now for quite a while.
You mean that biology fellow? Oh, shucks, he's just an unsophisticated kid. Why, you couldn't warm him up if you stuck a Bunsen burner under him.
You've been peeking. That is, Mr. Boynton's just shy about expressing his feelings.
He ain't got no feelings if you ask me, at least like I have for you, especially since I met you. Why,